This lesson is on 7.7, which is on simple and compound interest. To start, there's a few vocabulary words you're going to need to know, but you'll learn them better as we use them through different formulas. So for example, interest. Interest is the amount earned or paid for the use of money. So you may hear from parents that if you put money in a bank, you earn interest. Or if you're talking about a house mortgage or car payments, you're going to pay interest because you're borrowing money for the bank and then paying them back over a period of time. Principal is the amount of money deposited, like into a bank account, or borrowed, either one of those. And we're going to denote this as a P when we use it in equations. Simple interest is interest that is earned or paid only on the principal. So the initial amount you borrowed or deposited. That's called simple interest. And that'll make more sense as we go later. The annual interest rate is the percent of the principal earned or paid per year. That's the annual interest rate. So you may hear great rates on a new housing mortgage, only 4% or something like that on commercials on TV. That's your annual interest rate. So how much money you're going to have to pay for borrowing money, or how much money you're going to earn if you've deposited it into a bank. Balance. The balance, we use the symbol A, of an account that earns simple interest is the sum of the principal and the interest, which is PRT. We're going to go over these equations on the next few slides, but we have two equations. You can either write the total balance equals the principal plus the interest on the principal, or you can rewrite it using the distributive property as the principal times 1 plus R times T, which is our interest. And lastly, we have compound interest. What's nice about compound interest, if you've deposited money somewhere, is that they're going to give you interest not only on what you initially put in, that principal, but they're also going to give you interest on interest that you made previously. So if you made $100 in interest, they're going to give you more interest on that $100. Where with simple interest, they only do it on that initial deposit, that principal. This will become more clear as we go. So the first formula you need to know is the simple interest formula, which is I equals PRT, where P is the principal, R is the annual interest rate, but we write it as a decimal because the annual interest rate is in a percent, so we have to change that into a decimal. And T is the time in years, and I is our simple interest here. So example 1, finding simple interest. So if you have a $2,000 bond, some of you may have gotten savings bonds when you were born or for other occasions when you're young. So this is an example like that. So a $2,000 bond earns 3% simple interest per year on its purchase price. Find the interest earned after 5 years. So the first thing you want to do is write out the formula, I equals PRT. Then we're going to substitute 2,000 is our P because that was your original principal. That's what you purchased it for or you invested. 3% becomes 0.03 because we need to write it as a decimal. And then 5 is our time in years. So then we can just use a calculator and multiply these and we get I equals 300. So we can say the bond will earn 3,000 in interest after 5 years. So then that bond would be worth 2,300 total, the interest plus this initial principal. So I'd like you to do is go ahead and try this one on your own using the same equation. Press pause now and give it a try. So example 2, what if you had to find the interest rate? So we're no longer just looking for the interest, we want to know the interest rate, which is R. So suppose you deposit $900 into an account that earns simple annual interest. After 8 months, the balance is $913.20. So that's our ending balance. Find the annual interest rate. So the first thing we have to know is because T in the formula, A, so here's a new formula, make sure you write this down. A equals P times 1 plus RT is the time in years. We have it in months, 8 months, so we have to write that as 8 over 12, or we can simplify it to 2/3 of a year. Then, for R, we need to, I don't know why that's a sol, but for R, after substituting values A, P, and T. So our account balance includes the principal plus the interest. So we're going to write the formula out first. Then we're going to substitute, just as we did before. So 913.2 is our balance, 900 is our principal, times 1 plus R, and the T is 2 over 3. We don't know what R is, that's what we're going to solve for. The next step, use the distributive property. So 900 times 1 is 900. 900 times 2/3 is 600. So we're left with 913.2 equals 900 plus 600R. We can then subtract 900 from each side, leaving us with only 13.2 on the left and 600R on the right. We then divide both sides by 600 and get R equals 0.022, but let's write it as a percent since we express simple interest, simple annual interest as a percent. So the annual interest rate is 2.2%. I want you to practice using this equation and find the unknown quantity for an account that earns simple annual interest. So here they give you P, R, and T. You need to find A. So go ahead and use this equation here to solve for this. So now we get to compound interest for our last example. So compound interest is when an account earns interest compounded annually. So at the end of each year, however much is in it, whether it's from interest or your principal, you're going to earn interest the next year on the full balance. So this is the equation for compound interest. A equals P times 1 plus R with T as an exponent, where P is the principal, R is the annual interest rate written as a decimal, and T is the time in years. So if you deposit $1,250 into an account that earns 2.25% interest compounded annually, find the balance after 4 years. So the first step is always let's write out the formula, then let's substitute what we know. So we're solving for A because we know everything else. So we know 1,250 times 1 plus, we had to write the percent here, or the annual interest, as a decimal, 0.0225 to the 4th. We can then use our calculator to solve for that, getting 1,366.35. So the balance after 4 years is equal to 1,366.35. You may need to round to the nearest cent, which is fine. If you get something that has a longer decimal, that's normal. Just make sure you round to the nearest cent. So I want you to try one on your own. And here again, use this formula, but round to the nearest cent. So if your principal equals $35, your annual interest rate equals 2.5%, and the time is 10 years, find the account balance. Bring this with you tomorrow, and that's all for this lesson.